So I'm going to go ahead and clarify something. After getting to experience the passive-aggressive testing boundaries and hazing attempts to kill you, first off, they were attempts to kill you. It wasn't testing boundaries and hazing. It was legitimate attempts to kill you. Another factor, watch your medical records. Alright? Understand at any moment, if, leave any type of general vicinity or any type of attempts to include in any type of medical matters, you're going to need to check with your doctors to make sure that in your medical records there is no do not resuscitate orders with your name forged. Alright? Understand. Had to learn that the hard way. 4 attempts to kill me? Yeah. So, understand at this point, despite the fact that I've been maimed pretty good, one thing at least, can't forget too, the whole framing me because fuck you, you figured out too much. That was a fun one. Yeah. So at this point, despite all the, ostracization and, familial gang up and, exclusion tactics, isolation tactics, every form of abuse, psychological, verbal, emotional, every single one. Yeah, at this point, the usefulness that I've provided regardless, despite the factor of me being maimed, is after the amount of attempts that there have been to kill me, because of attempts to, go ahead and try to speed up the process on a life insurance policy. Yeah, the usefulness that I bring is a contingency that ultimately, if those boundaries don't stop getting crossed and those, testing the boundaries and hazing, with the potential of lethality don't stop, I'm the contingency. So, ultimately, when you have somebody that's basically hasn't crossed that line, but has homicidal ideations and ultimately complete and total sociopathic tendencies, with complete and total lack and devoid of emotional regulation. And, ultimately, can't forget all the gaslighting, too. For anybody with a family member or even an in-law in that situation, despite the factor of how absolutely fucked up after getting pushed to that limit that somebody could end up being, it is always vital to have one person in your family that is capable of being that contingency, because of understanding that some people, especially once that line's crossed, there's no coming back. So, yeah. Sorry you had to learn the hard way about me telling the truth about, the attempts to try to kill you, which you'll get to learn, that despite the factor that you go ahead and vocalize about it, it'll ultimately get shrugged off by everybody because, ultimately they'll be like, well, I can't see any direct proof, that it was them. And the fucked up thing is, even law enforcement has tried. Ultimately, though, the good thing, though, is after enough distance away, where there's no general location of being nearby or any type of direct contact whatsoever, ultimately, despite the factor of the speculations and suspicions, based on rumors and hearsay, and false accusations and false allegations, eventually law enforcement will actually go ahead and believe you, and ultimately they'll eventually err on the side of caution in the aspect like, well, it would be too difficult to be able to go ahead and, bring this to court to a point a restraining order, but we are fully aware of their tendencies and, understand at this point there's literally been, you know, public, petitions to go ahead and address the situation. That and ultimately end up being declared a public nuisance. So I'm just saying, don't give up hope in that aspect. But also understand too, best things that you could do. First off, don't feel guilty about being guilted about, not going for family events or any events that, actually has that person. Because yeah, if you couldn't tell by the whole anaphylactic shock, with the tomato rice thing, yeah, ultimately understand your food and your drinks are not safe. And it is a good thing that you have an EpiPen. All right? Another factor. Ultimately, a few things that you could end up going ahead and, being aware of. For example, if you have any type of job prospects, do not mention them. All right? Some of the things that'll end up getting done. Uh, Ultimately, the attempt to go ahead and, you know, go do drugs and then, try to go ahead and tamper with your, drug screening in an attempt for employment to go ahead and try to avoid, civil liability for, restitutions, for tortious interference. Like, literally understand, like, at this point, family lawyer, yeah, no, that kind of comes as a package deal at this point. So, but understand too, literally best precaution that you could have, learn as much about the law on your own as you can. All right? Because even when it comes to the whole family lawyer aspect, understand no matter what, the big weakness is also the big strength of doing whatever, can to learn whatever is your topic and fixation. Yeah, no. They'll try to go ahead and become a subject expert at it, but ultimately the big weakness is the factor that they spend so much time going ahead and trying to, you know, be better than you at what you think you're best at, that ultimately the bait and switch ends up being super easy. So that way, while they think that you're focusing on one subject, even when it comes to, academically and, you know, educationally, as far as even credentials, even go ahead to try to go and beat you out of jobs in that aspect, while at the same time, because they're focusing on that career path, they have no idea what you're actually doing career wise and how you're making your money and your paycheck, but they'll try to go ahead and claim that you're making it in illegal means. But yeah, no, ultimately that arrogance and that egotism is the only, it's their fatal flaw. So, congratulations. You know their weakness.